Hello, welcome. You are listening to Dr. Sushma Singh. Today in Unit 18, Tribe and Caste, let us start our lecture with topic Basis for Misconstruction. The concept of caste against which the tribes have been studied have invariably led scholars to state or conclude that tribes are becoming caste. What this in effect means is that the tribes, by virtue of moving closer to caste, have become like any other segment of the Indian society, and as such ceases to be a tribe. There is in fact nothing left in them of what had gone into the making of the tribe. What this has led to is a kind of conception whereby tribes or tribal societies, by becoming caste, peasant, or socially differentiated, ceased to be tribes or tribal societies. There is then something technological involved in the study of tribal society in the Indian context. Before we begin studying, we already know the direction in which the tribal society is moving. Nowhere is this more obvious than the contrast against which tribal societies have been studied. Elsewhere in the world where tribes are not linked with the civilization complex, such problems does not arise, as tribes there are studied in their own rights and against the backdrop of the processes at work in those societies. They are not studied against the endpoint represented by the communities that are part of civilization, as has been the case with India. Hence, whereas elsewhere the focus of the study has been on how tribes are changing and becoming nationalities or nations in the process, the focus in India has been on how tribes are becoming caste, peasants, and stratified. It follows as a corollary then that tribes cease to be tribes or a tribal society. And since these are the features with which the general Indian society is characterized, tribes are viewed as absorbed into the general Indian society. As a corollary, what follows is that tribes, through these processes, cease to be tribes and thereby cease to constitute and maintain a separate society and identity. Tribes are primarily being studied from the perspective of how they are getting drawn into mainstream of civilization. The end result is that the reality of caste remains intact, but that of tribe disappears, and this will increasingly spread as tribal societies come in a intensive contact with the outside world. Such an empirical and conceptual scenario in the study of tribes exists in India precisely because of the way tribes have been conceptualized in the anthropological literature and the reference in terms of which they have been investigated. In a nutshell, tribes have not been studied in their own right, but only in relation to the general Indian society, which was marked by overriding features of caste, peasant, and social differentiation. In a conceptualization of tribes in anthropology, three distinct but interrelated elements are intervened. To begin with, tribes in anthropology are first of all invariably seen as society. It is a society like all other societies. That is, it is made up of people, it has boundaries, and that people belong to society in virtue of rules under which they stand and which impose on them regular determinate ways of acting towards and in regard to one another. The characteristics of tribe as a society is related through its boundaries. At the same time, boundaries of the tribes have been defined linguistically, culturally, and politically by anthropologists. Boundaries set certain limits of interaction in the legal, political, economic, and social relation of its members. Secondly, tribes are also seen as a type of society, a society that is different from one type of societies. For example, sees tribal societies as being characterized by certain positive and negative features. The negatives are marked by an absence of the positive traits of the modern society. For example, non literate, uncivilized, non industrialized, non specialized, etc. The positives are those absent from the modern societies, like social relations based on kinship bonds, all pervasive religions, frequency of cooperation for common goals, etc. Thirdly, tribes are also seen as representing a particular stage in the socio-political formation and with the passage of time will move to new stages such as nation, nationality, or the nationhood. Now, while these three distinct aspects have gone in the making of the concept, the last two have overshadowed the first, to which the tribes owe their separate and independent existence. What has, however, happened in the process is that tribes have been primarily seen as a shortage stage and type of society. They are seen as representing a society that lacks positive traits of modern society. To put it differently, they constitute primitive, simple, illiterate, and backward societies, which changes in the features that constitute its specific features due education, specialization, modern occupation, new technology, etc. Tribal society is no longer considered as a tribal society if the transformation is in the direction of caste, then it is described as having become a caste society. If the reference is peasant, then it is positioned as the peasant society. And if the general direction of transformation is social differentiation, then it is described as a socially differentiated society. The end result is that the tribal society is no longer considered a tribal society, and rightly so, if it is thought in terms of stage and the specific features. But as we said earlier, tribe is also society similar to any other kind of society, but even this comes to be denied with the denial of tribal society as such on account of the changed situation. With this, the very existence of tribe as an independent and separate living entity is put to stake. What has happened in the process is that anthropologists and other social scientists have overlooked the context in which the term tribe came to be used in Indian society. In the Indian context, tribes were identified and described primarily in terms of them being outside the civilization. There is then something clumsy about the use of concept tribe in the describing the Indian social reality. Such problems may not arise when tribes do not coexist with the non-tribal society. Indeed, problems of the type referred to above could be overcome by the use of the term indigenous people, but not without giving rise to problem of the different dimension. Such a problem is rooted in the concept and conceptual framework that have been used to understand transformation in the tribal society in India. There is then something clumsy and basically wrong with the use of term tribe in the Indian context. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.